Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? We are now surrounded by the so-called Internet of Things. But I'm starting to think it's actually the Internet of shit. This whole so-called Internet of Things, or IoT, or whatever you want to call it, is really something that's only popped up in the last few years. A lot of the devices that we now call IoT devices, they've existed for a while, but the way they work has dramatically changed because of this whole thing called cloud computing, which is its own level of BS, but I'm going to save that part probably for another episode. Some great examples of Internet of Things devices are these so-called home assistants, things like Amazon Alexa, Google Home, the new Apple HomePod, I believe they're calling it. That one's coming up. Devices like that where you can, talk to them and they'll give you answers, that sort of thing. Those are probably the most recent and most obvious examples of Internet of Things, but there are plenty of other ones. Things like smart locks, where you can walk up to your door and with an app on your phone, unlock the lock, or same thing with your garage door. Even occasions where you can have smart home appliances like your refrigerator, can send you a text message about the temperature inside it or some kind of crazy crap like that. Other great examples is the entire Nest product line, the thermostat. You could be sitting at work and realizing, I forgot to turn the air conditioner off at home or whatever, or you want to change the set point of the heater. You can just do that through an app on your smartphone when you're away from home. And then even into video surveillance. Now we've got IP, security cameras that you can install at home where you don't really need to have a server running at home to capture all of that footage. It just gets uploaded again to the so-called cloud and stored there. But there are a lot of concerns about this technology. I have no doubt that it can be really cool. In a lot of cases, I do personally think that they added internet connectivity to an otherwise innocuous device just as a marketing bullet point, right? Like, I don't really care to be getting a text message when my washing machine is done with a load or whatever, right? I mean, I'm in my house, my washing machine is in my house. I can hear it make its little chime when it's done. I don't need to get a text message about it. And the argument of, well, it's great for you if you're out and about. Okay, yeah. So I'm sitting, at a restaurant out for dinner and I get a text message, the dryer is done. Well, congratulations. I can't do anything about it, right? So at some point, I think it's just kind of BS. I think it's marketing crap that they use just to sell, how advanced of technology they offer in their products or whatever. But there can be some really interesting use cases for it. Of course, those smart assistants, Google Home and the Amazon Alexa, HomePod, that sort of thing, where you can talk to it and do more than just ask questions. I mean, the obvious stuff is like, what's the temperature outside and that kind of thing. But you can also ask more generic questions of it. You can ask, what's the weather forecast going to be like? What are the headlines? Stuff that can help you multitask, I think is where the biggest selling point for devices like that are. I've never really gotten into, the voice recognition kind of stuff on smartphones, because I think it is kind of silly in a lot of cases, right? So, I've got an iPhone and I use Siri every once in a while, but most often when I'm using something like Siri, it's really more out of spite or out of jest than anything else. Like if someone asks me a really obvious question, I'll fire up Siri and ask Siri the question, as a way to screw with that person or whatever. For daily use, I've never found myself sitting at my desk or whatever and being like, I wonder what the temperature is outside, and asking that of my phone. I'll just open an app and look at it, right? It's in some ways you kind of have the whole talking to yourself type of thing going. And I don't think a lot of people are too interested in talking to themselves or into, a random device like that that's always listening. So Where I think these devices can really come into play is if they give you better analytics or they actually let you multitask. I can totally see Google Home or one of those smart devices being really useful for something like if you are already busy doing something and you're looking for additional information. Maybe you've got your hands full. A great example that comes to mind right off the top of my head is maybe you're cooking. You're in the kitchen, you're cooking. Instead of constantly going over and finding a recipe or whatever and looking at it, you can call out to Google Home, okay, what's the next ingredient or what's the next step in the process, something like that, where your hands are already full and or messy and you don't really want to pick up a device and have to, futz around with trying to find the next part of the recipe, that sort of thing. Maybe you're already working on something and you want to have a book read to you or have the headlines read to you. I can think of occasions where that would make a lot of sense, but again, coming back to the random appliances throughout your house, I struggle to think of that being a good idea, especially in the wake of the real problem that I have with these devices. Other than the fact that you could feel like a total goof talking to yourself into one of these devices or whatever, but the biggest concern for me is actually the security angle of it and the privacy angle of it. And that's really... It can be very scary, actually, just how bad it is on these devices. Privacy is going to be a big factor, of course. It can be as simple as just personal information, right? Yet another company knowing your name and your email and your address and maybe your phone number and your physical, geographical location if the device has GPS built in, something like that. You wonder what they're going to be doing with that information. And, companies don't make their terms and conditions all that easy to find or read through because they're incredibly long and full of complicated legal language. So, most people don't read through it. So who knows what you're signing your life away to when you buy a device like that. But it can go even deeper than just that kind of generic, mailing address information. One of them that I have a concern about is the whole habits and preferences thing. So if, let's say, you're ordering from Amazon Alexa, obviously it's going to keep track of what you order. And this is really no different than if you order off of the website, but based on other questions that you ask it, it can start tying more information together, right? Where it can, maybe make suggestions on products that you'd like based on your existing order history if you're using Amazon's web browser. But Amazon's web, the Amazon's order history, it can't necessarily tell what other preferences you have in your life. They can do a lot of assumptions, but they can't get the full picture like a device that is in your home, always listening or always watching can have. So Amazon Alexa can conceivably put together not just your order history, but also the questions that you ask it. And the questions that you ask it can reveal parts about your life or your habits that it can then use, again, to either sell you more products or sell your information to other companies. The biggest concern with privacy that I have, though, are things like devices that can record video and can record audio and push all that information up to the internet out of your control. Alexa and Google Home and HomePod, they're going to be always listening, always recording, because that's the idea, right? Is you can call out to it and it can respond to that instead of you having to actually press a button or something on it to get it to understand that you're talking to it now. Well, I've read reports of cases where police have been investigating some heinous crimes that have happened in a home that had one of these smart devices in it. And because those devices are recording all the time, they were able to subpoena the company for those recordings. And they were able to get that audio and figure out, at least piece together a little bit better what happened, in the moments leading up to that crime being committed. I wish I could remember the exact scenario. I believe it was actually a murder or something like that. And I don't quote me on this, but I'd like to think it was actually Amazon Alexa that recorded the entire thing. But again, I can't remember exactly. It was a while ago. But even that out of the picture, it's just the fact that everything that's going on in your house is being recorded and sent to some server out on the internet out of your control. What's happening with that information? The company can promise these things all at once. It can say in its terms and conditions, oh, we won't reveal, these recordings to anybody else. But, if they get hit with a subpoena, they have to produce it, right? So it starts to really become a pretty severe privacy angle, especially when you also think about video cameras. I mean, audio is one thing, but video cameras are another. I don't think I would ever be willing to buy cloud-connected security cameras just because once that video is out there on the internet, you could never take it down again. And the bigger worry is who has access to not just the recorded video, but the live stream of it, right? Could people figure out if you're at home or not by hacking into your account? Well, of course they can. But what if they don't even hack into your account? What if they hack into the systems behind it? Maybe the company that manages that video recording platform for all these cloud connected cameras, maybe they do a sloppy job with their code and somebody figures out a way to get in and watch all of these cameras and dump the customer database. Suddenly now you've got the ability to see who's at home at any given moment so that you can know whether you would be able to go and rob their house or something like that. And sloppy code is really the actual other concern that I have with these Internet of Things devices. Of course, there's the privacy angle, but there's the fact that a lot of these devices are rushed out to market pretty quickly with a lot of attention being paid to maybe the hardware design, but not so much to the software behind it, specifically the firmware. A lot of times these devices will open their connection to the internet in a bidirectional manner, where the device itself doesn't necessarily just push information up to the cloud, where it also sits and listens for new things to come down from it, new notifications or software updates or anything like that. The classic example is going to be, someone who wants to remote in and change their thermostat at home while they're sitting at work or on vacation or something like that. Maybe they forgot to turn the heat down a few degrees when they're sitting in the airport leaving on a vacation. Well, the marketing selling point is, well, you can just launch the app on your phone and change it and you're done. Well, your device at home needs to be listening for that command. So most of these devices will open up a port through your home internet router using a protocol called UPnP, Universal Plug and Play, where the device itself can tell the router, hey, I need this specific port inbound from the internet, and the router's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And that is a really convenient thing. And I totally understand why that protocol exists and why it's used, because most of the people who buy these devices are not highly technical in their nature or their mindset. So they're not going to know, oh, in order to get this device to work, I have to log into my router's web interface and change these settings, allow these ports inbound from the internet to it, that sort of thing. It really just needs to be, a plug and play type of experience. The problem is when your firmware is full of either security holes or even worse, it's been set with an incredibly weak default username and password. Now that device has become a target on your network. And we have seen this happen numerous times. A few months back, there was a major botnet going around the internet called Mirai, and it's a botnet that was powered entirely by Internet of Things type devices, specifically seeking out devices that had weak firmware and weak default usernames and passwords. So this botnet would find more devices to conscript into its army. It would go in, it would flash a new custom firmware on that device or execute arbitrary code that would then get that device to join part of the botnet and do nefarious things like execute dynamic denial or distributed I'm losing my words today. Distributed denial of service, DDoS attacks against various resources. DDoS attacks are nothing new. They are what I would say cause a lot of the outages for major gaming platforms like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network have both been targeted by DDoS attacks numerous times over the years. Websites, services, even just vast sections of the internet itself have all been targets of it. And having a whole bunch of these dumb devices sitting out on the internet that most people aren't even thinking about and can't easily get notifications about software patches for really only fuels that fire. I mean, your desktop, your laptop, your phone, those are generally going to be pretty good about notifying you that there's an update to be installed, and it'll get downloaded and installed for you because you're going to be using that device fairly frequently. So you've already got some screen time going on there. Your phone will pop up with a message on screen saying, hey, it's time for update. And you'll be like, okay, fine, whatever. With a lot of these devices, you don't necessarily interact with them directly. With the security camera, you're probably not going to interact with the camera itself. If anything, you may log into the web interface out in the cloud periodically, but that's it. So these devices can go for long periods of time without getting firmware updates. And that's assuming that the manufacturer even cares about plugging the holes, either because they know how to do it and they care about, they know how to do it, or maybe they just don't care about the device anymore. With how disposable this technology has kind of become, if it's older than a couple of years, chances are the manufacturer no longer supports it at all. So what do you do at that point? You have to throw it out, or you have to cripple the device's functionality in order to keep it secure. But it's I think, going even further now. I mean, we've got these privacy and network security concerns from your information and your home network type of perspective. Like you've got your device and it gets hacked and it becomes part of a botnet, or it gets hacked and suddenly the person who hacks it is able to get access to your internal home network and maybe try to break into one of your computers, that sort of thing. But now we've actually been seeing ploys where these Internet of Things devices are enabling companies to physically get into your home. The one that has been making headlines in the last few weeks is called Amazon Key, although it is not the first and it will also not be the last. So the idea behind Amazon Key is it lets the delivery driver get into your house, into your home, so that they can deliver that package securely inside instead of leaving it outside where it can get stolen or maybe rained on, or even so that they can actually complete the delivery. If you live in an area where you need to provide an access code, maybe you have a gate across the end of your long driveway, or you're in a gated community or something like that. But a lot of people immediately freaked out about Amazon Key, and I completely agree with them. But I feel like a lot of the details about it got lost in the news stories when this service was first announced. So I actually went through and I read as much as I could, at least as Amazon has published so far, about how it works. So let's run through it. I wrote down some notes. It's actually two parts. It uses both an internet-connected door lock and a security camera. It gets sold to you as a package. The idea is you put the camera inside the house and you point it at the door that you're going to install the lock into. When you place an order, you can select that you want that order to be fulfilled through Amazon Key. And when the package is being delivered, the driver will pull up to your house or whatever, they'll scan the package, and on their mobile device, they'll get a prompt that will allow them to unlock the door. Basically, swipe to unlock, like physically. The lock on the door will unlock. They can then open the door, put the package inside the house, close the door, swipe to relock, and then move on, to their next delivery. And then once that's done, you will get a message showing that the package has been delivered, plus you'll get to see the video clip of when that delivery actually happened. So you'll see the inside view of the house of them opening the door, dropping the package off, and then closing the door again. However, there are a lot of what ifs behind that, right? On its face, it seems really simple. They can just, put the package inside the house, close the door, move on. But people's minds tended to immediately start to come up with all these scenarios as soon as they heard about this product. And these are just a few that I can think of. The first one is, what if your pets escape? I have a cat and she occasionally gets curious about wanting to go outside, and I have to make sure that she doesn't escape through an open door. I could see that happening quite a bit with pets. So are delivery drivers even going to care or know that there's a pet inside the house and that they need to be really careful when opening the door, not just to keep the pet from getting out, but heck, what if the pet is, fairly, I don't want to say vicious, but fairly aggressive? It's not going to necessarily be the same delivery driver every single time, so that pet may not even be able to get used to that one person who periodically opens the door and drops packages off. So that's a factor. Another factor is, what if they forget to lock the door again? It's not a slide to unlock, open the door, and then as soon as you close the door, it automatically relocks. The notes that I've read specifically state that the driver has to close the door and execute an action on their phone to relock the door. Well, what if they're in a hurry and don't bother to do that or forget to do that? Your house is then sitting there unlocked. As we've seen with people following delivery drivers around just so they can steal packages immediately off of front steps after they've been delivered, what makes you think that we wouldn't see the same thing where delivery drivers, may forget to lock the door behind them, and a potential burglar just walks right up a couple minutes later and can walk in the house and steal all your stuff? Obviously, that's no good. And what if the delivery driver themselves maybe has, some nefarious things in mind and they go into your house and steal all of your stuff? Maybe they wear a mask so that you can't recognize them. Well, Amazon, I would imagine, is going to keep track of the people who deliver specific packages. Instead of it just being a company, they can tie that back to an individual delivery driver. But what if the driver is working in conjunction with somebody else, and they forget, in quotation marks, to relock the door? But it turns out, they didn't forget, and they're getting a cut of whatever of your stuff gets stolen. That's a thing to worry about. To Amazon's credit, a lot of these things have been addressed in its documentation, but it's been addressed through training and policy and not necessarily technical limitations or requirements. Amazon says that it only allows Amazon logistics personnel to deliver at this time. So you won't see a random UPS or FedEx driver or whatever using Amazon Key, at least not at launch. It's all going to be people employed through Amazon Logistics, which is Amazon's own delivery company that it's starting to roll out in more and more cities. They also say that the drivers are still going to be trained to always knock or ring the doorbell first, and only if there is no response will they then use Amazon Key. Well, what about times? Well, supposedly there's going to be limited times as to when they're allowed to use Amazon Key within a certain number of hours during the day. It's not going to be like at 2 a.m. if they're, running super late or whatever, or 10 o'clock at night or something like that, where they'll be able to, use Amazon Key and open your door while you're laying there asleep, something like that. And then the last bit is they are supposedly being trained to only crack the door open just enough to be able to slide the package in and then close the door. They're basically saying the goal is to not have to open the door all the way and walk into the home and put the package down and leave. It's going to be more, if it's a, kind of a skinny, narrow package, just crack the door, slide the box through, close the door, move on type of thing. There are still some problems with this. First is that Amazon Logistics, my understanding is that the vast majority of people hired by Amazon Logistics are actually third-party contractors, not direct Amazon employees. So, what impetus are they going to have? What desire are they going to have to really follow Amazon's rules to the letter, right? They're working for a third-party contractor. Worst case scenario, they get reassigned to some other account or something like that if Amazon, raises a complaint. Will they still be knocking or ringing the doorbell first? Are they even going to use Amazon Key? These sorts of things. We know that the drivers have a hard time following policy. And this is something that I've seen firsthand. They're supposed to ring the doorbell or knock when they deliver a package. I've been an Amazon Prime subscriber for a couple of months now, and I've ordered probably 6 to 8 packages during that time period, and they've all been fulfilled through Amazon Logistics. Not once have they ever rung the doorbell or knocked, because they always deliver in the evening when I'm home. And the only reason I know that they've actually delivered is because I've either gotten an email saying that they've delivered, or I've heard them just very quietly open my storm door, stick the box in, and close the storm door. So we know that they have a problem following policy. I know why they do this. They're trying to speed up their delivery, right? If they have to ring the doorbell, stand there, wait for 15, 20 seconds to see if someone responds before leaving the package and going, that's 15 to 20 seconds more time for each package it takes for them to deliver. And they're trying to get as many packages delivered in as short amount of time as possible. So, in some ways I can understand them not following the rules, but if they're not following the rules for something as simple as ringing the doorbell, what necessarily makes you think they're going to follow the rules for something a bit more complicated and regulated like Amazon Key? What's to keep them from opening the door without knocking first, right? Maybe they just say, screw it, I'm going to bet these people aren't home. Instead of ringing the doorbell or just leaving the package there if they're not sure if it's appropriate, maybe they're just like, screw it, I'm going to make this delivery and be done. So they just go ahead and say on their app or whatever, yeah, I tried and nobody's home. And they open the door and whoops, maybe there's something going on inside the house that they shouldn't be seeing. And the owners are going to be mighty embarrassed about, that sort of thing. It could be a major invasion of privacy because they may not follow policy. There's also some major privacy concerns regarding that camera. And in some ways, this kind of follows all cameras, but it can be even worse potentially for Amazon Key. In their, documentation, it says that you can delete the video clips. But there's also a statement in there in the terms of service that says that Amazon may keep those clips for internal purposes. The quote is, if you use a compatible product capable of creating recordings, we will process and retain your recordings in the cloud to provide and improve our services. So even if you say potentially, I want to go in and delete these clips of the door opening and closing and all the other surveillance footage or whatever, Amazon may still get to keep a copy of them to watch for, quote unquote, internal process refinement or whatever. Who's going to be able to see those, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a concern when they say that if you want us to delete a video, we'll just delete it unequivocally. If they say, well, no, but we're going to use it to improve our services, I'm not so sure about that. The other thing is that the camera can be remotely enabled. You do apparently have the ability to go in and disable that camera whenever you want, but it'll still get turned on again automatically when an Amazon Key delivery tries to get made. Now, I can see this as being a good thing because maybe you turned the camera off and forgot to turn it back on again, and a key delivery was scheduled for that day, and maybe something did happen where that video footage would have been really useful, but you turned the camera off and forgot to turn it on. So in this case, it's kind of a scenario where I think Amazon is maybe protecting you from yourself. But at the same time, if the camera can be remotely enabled, the camera can be remotely enabled. So even if you turn it off, what's to say that something else can't go in and turn it back on when you don't want it to be? Especially when Amazon is going to start selling these cameras in multi-packs, not just for watching your front door for Amazon Key deliveries, but also just for general home security. You're going to want to put these throughout, or at least they're going to say, you're going to want to put these throughout your house in case someone breaks in or something happens. You can keep an eye on it on vacation in case, a pipe bursts and water starts flooding all over the place or, whatever. If it can be enabled remotely, it can be enabled remotely. There's, of course, systems security, and this is the biggest concern that I have, is that there's that lock involved as well. Amazon, if you install that lock, has the ability to unlock your house over the internet. Just think about that. Forget about whether you're home or not. Forget about whether it's a privacy concern or not. Just the sheer fact that a computer over in Amazon's world has the ability to send a signal to unlock your door. Systems are not infallible. I work in IT. I see this all the time. Systems are not infallible. They are full of bugs and holes. And security, internet security, is the biggest thing in IT right now. because it has become such a big issue. Like we were talking about botnets earlier on in this podcast. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Could you imagine if in Amazon's back-end systems that there's a bad enough software bug that exposes maybe an API or something to the internet, or someone were even able to get in and, traverse throughout Amazon systems to find the one control panel that manages all this, or find the database that has all this information. Just the sheer fact that Amazon is effectively going to have a database full of customers who have these locks installed that they can then send a signal at any time to unlock is a huge concern, right? Could you imagine if someone got into that system? They would have basically the ability to rob anyone's house on that list at any time, especially when coupled with the camera, because they could use the camera to figure out whether you're home or not. And that, I think, is why a lot of people are really shying away from Amazon Key. I've seen a few different surveys on the internet prior to shooting this podcast episode that says that the majority of Americans are kind of weirded out about it and not too thrilled in engaging with it. And I'm definitely not going to be installing any system like that in my own house. And I would imagine that most of you probably aren't either. The most worrying concern about this, besides the fact that they have the ability to unlock your house over the internet and watch everything you're doing through that camera, is a little buried statement towards the bottom of the terms and conditions. And it has to do with binding arbitration. It means that if a delivery driver were to, say, fail to relock your house and a burglar comes along behind them and steals all of your stuff, you can't take Amazon to court because of that. Even though it was Amazon's quote unquote fault that the door wasn't relocked, you can't take Amazon to court. If you buy Amazon Key, you have to agree to this binding arbitration agreement, which means that you have to go through this third-party private negotiator or whatever to settle the issue. And the reason why binding arbitration simply does not work, it just doesn't work, is because one party always pays for it. In this case, Amazon would be the one who would be paying for that arbitrator. The arbitrator, more often than not, is going to find in favor of the person who pays them. Because if they find against the person who pays them, they're probably not going to be getting paid anymore, right? Why would Amazon want to continue to pay an arbitrator who keeps finding cases against Amazon? They're going to want to find someone who's a little bit more amenable to what Amazon's goals are, if you know what I mean. So, the Internet of Things, it's become this crazy nebulous mess. And I'm not afraid of it, but I'm really picky about what I'm allowing into my home and what technology I use. And I really try to read through those terms and conditions and such whenever I can. If I'm ever presented with a screen on a device that says, do you want to send diagnostics data or whatever back to the mothership? More often than not, I will turn that off. Because sometimes diagnostics data can mean a lot more than just a crash report when something fails to work. And I encourage all of you to take that same skeptical approach. I'm not saying that we should be afraid of the Internet of Things. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to continue to advance technology. But I am saying that it is becoming fairly consumer unfriendly. And we need to be a lot more cognizant of what we're signing ourselves up for when we buy these devices, other than just looking at the cool whiz-bang features that it offers and saying, screw it, I want to buy it because it seems like a fun toy. So with that, I am, of course, curious as to your thoughts. Do you have any devices like this? What do you think of them? Have any of these security concerns even crossed your mind before? Has it changed your opinion on these devices through this podcast, or are you just still gung-ho for it? Either way, I'm just curious as to your thoughts, so be sure to leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at thisdoesnotcomp. And as always, thanks for watching.